Welcome to Hidden Reality. Imagine, for just a second, being miles out on the open ocean. You're completely isolated, you're fully conscious, and you're hopelessly bound to a heavy metal anchor. Now imagine the person who just orchestrated your demise is standing right above you, just smiling back at you. How does a lifelong dream, a peaceful retirement, end in such an unfathomable nightmare? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unravel the deeply chilling and tragic case of Tom and Jackie Hawks and their beloved yacht, the Well-Deserved.
Our story really begins in November of 2004. Picture a retired police chief, Jim Hawks, standing on a dock in Newport Beach, California. He's just staring at his brother's yacht. Now, supposedly this boat had just been sold, right? But Jim knew instantly, in his gut, that something was terribly, horribly wrong. His brother Tom and his sister-in-law Jackie had simply stopped answering their phones. They had vanished without a single trace. And the scene Jim found? It was incredibly jarring. See, Tom Hawks was a fastidious guy. He kept this boat absolutely spotless. You could literally eat off the deck. Yet Jim is looking at unstowed lines just hanging haphazardly over the side. Control panels are completely missing. There are dirty towels draped over the portholes. To Jim, this wasn't just messy. It was a blaring red alert siren that Tom and Jackie absolutely did not leave this boat on their own terms.
Part 1. A Dream Retirement Interrupted.
To really grasp the gravity of that scene on the dock, we have to look back at exactly who Tom and Jackie Hawks were. They met at a chili cook-off back in 1986. Jackie had survived a severe motorcycle accident that left her unable to have biological children, so she poured her whole heart, her entire soul into raising Tom's 2 sons from a previous marriage. They were just this remarkably loving family. And when the boys finally grew up and moved out, Tom and Jackie took all their frugal savings, sold their house, and bought a modest yacht to live out their dream retirement at sea.
And for 2 whole years, they actually lived that dream. But then in 2004, they got some amazing news. They were going to be grandparents. Thrilled by the chance to be closer to their new grandchild back on land, they put the Well-Deserved up for sale for nearly $500,000. They found buyers almost instantly, and that $500,000 sale supposedly finalized right before they went totally silent.
Part 2. Unraveling Skyler's Alibi.
With the Hawks missing and their bank accounts completely untouched, the police immediately zeroed in on these so-called new buyers. Now, these purchasers claimed they paid for this massive vessel entirely in cash. Who does that, right? The lead buyer was a 25-year-old ex-con named Skyler Deleon, and he brought along his seemingly sweet pregnant wife, Jennifer. But as detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a seriously dark cast of characters. You had Skyler, the calculating mastermind, Jennifer acting as the perfect, disarming bait, Alonzo, a former jailer Skyler actually met behind bars, and John Kennedy, a hardened gang member brought in purely for his physical muscle.
When the cops finally brought Skyler in, his alibi was just this wild maze of shifting lies. First, he claimed he paid the $500,000 using old money from his days as a child extra on the TV show Power Rangers. Yeah, seriously. When detectives pressed him on that, he smoothly pivoted and confessed to using stolen drug money in some complex laundering scheme. But through it all, he stuck to one ultimate claim. He said Tom and Jackie took the suitcase full of cash, signed over the boat, and drove their SUV down to Mexico.
But the biggest crack in Skyler's carefully crafted story happened south of the border. After police put out a public bulletin, the Hawks' missing SUV was actually found parked in Mexico. But Tom and Jackie? Nowhere to be found. Instead, the keys were in the hands of a totally random local resident. And guess what? This guy confirmed that the vehicle had been casually handed over to him by none other than Skyler Deleon himself.
The whole facade finally crumbled in the interrogation room. Police brought in Kathleen Harris, the notary who Skyler swore had witnessed this massive cash exchange. Under intense questioning, she completely broke. She confessed that she had never, ever met Tom and Jackie. Skyler had literally paid her off in cash to backdate the boat sale documents.
Part 3. The Deadly Sea Trial.
With Skyler's alibi entirely destroyed, police brought in Alonzo, the former jailer who posed as a witness. Realizing his story was falling apart, he flipped, agreeing to cooperate for a reduced sentence. And what he revealed about November 15th, it exposed a level of calculated horror that left even seasoned homicide detectives totally speechless. The setup was devastatingly simple.
Skyler, Alonzo, and John showed up at the dock for a supposed sea trial, but Tom Hawks was a former probation officer. He had sharp instincts. He sensed danger from these three guys and actually hesitated to leave the dock. Seeing his plan about to fail, Skyler ruthlessly called in his secret weapon, his wife, Jennifer. She showed up carrying their 1-year-old baby, and it worked. Jackie instantly fell in love with the child, Tom's guard completely dropped, and the Hawks agreed to set sail.
Once Jennifer left with the baby, and the well-deserved was miles out on the open ocean, the real nightmare began. Skyler and John lured Tom below deck and violently ambushed him. Up above, Alonzo overpowered Jackie. These men handcuffed the terrified couple, taped their eyes and mouths shut, threw them onto their own bed, and demanded they sign over the boat's title and grant full access to their life savings.
Right in the middle of this sheer, unimaginable terror, Jackie Hawks did something absolutely brilliant. It was a desperate final act of defiance. When they forced her to sign the power of attorney documents, she intentionally misspelled her own last name. She wrote Jackie Hawk, purposely leaving off the S. It was like a silent, permanent scream to the outside world, proving she was signing these papers under absolute duress.
Once the financial documents were in Skyler's hands, the boat's engines suddenly slowed. Skyler had intentionally navigated them to the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean. He ordered Alonzo to drag this massive, heavy metal anchor to the back of the boat. Tom and Jackie were dragged up to the deck, desperately pleading for their lives, begging just for the chance to see their unborn grandchild.
But Skyler totally ignored their cries. He tied the terrified couple's handcuffs directly to the bitter end of that anchor's chain, and then he heaved the heavy metal right over the side. The chain ripped across the deck, violently yanking Tom and Jackie into the water. They were pulled down, alive, fully conscious, descending 3,500 feet into the pitch-black abyss of the ocean. And as they disappeared beneath the surface, Skyler Deleon stood right there at the edge of the boat, grinned, and actually laughed.
Part 4. A chilling aftermath. Now, the justice system did eventually catch up with the monsters behind this. For his confession, Alonzo received 20 years in prison. Jennifer, the bait who coldly used her own baby to facilitate a double murder, got life without parole. And Skyler and John, the men who physically carried out the execution, were both sentenced to death.
But perhaps the most deeply disturbing detail of this entire horrific case was found inside the Deleon's own home. Investigators found the Hawks' personal camcorder. When they pressed play, they watched Jackie giving this really hopeful, emotional tour of her beloved yacht, talking so excitedly about her future grandchild. And then, the video just abruptly cuts. It cuts directly to Skyler and Jennifer just days after the murder, smiling and recording their family Thanksgiving dinner directly over the very last living memories of the people they had just slaughtered.
It's a detail that leaves us with a haunting, unanswered question, really. Just how deep must the void of sociopathy be for human greed to completely erase the value of human life? This explainer serves not just to uncover the dark truth of what happened that day, but as a somber tribute to the loving memory of Tom and Jackie Hawks. Subscribe to Hidden Reality for more incredible true stories and